It's for streaming only. You can't download the files separately, but you can stream and listen to them online. Yeah. Does that include there's no video.
You don't have it, but you got a original.
Oh, is that what you're doing?
In terms of bandwidth,
Oh, really?
I tried listening to it on my iPad.
Oh, really? But you should talk to him about that, because that's absolutely not the design. The idea was that that's why we don't do the video, is that you don't have to worry about bandwidth and the like.
They have different people from different universities.
We're now looking at the valuation of damages. And we've got a bunch of articles, and we have a bunch of cases to talk about. And so I think it's important to start to think about how we try to make valuations on damages and the like. And especially, I think, as you start to transition from law student to lawyer, when people litigate cases, when people want to receive recovery for things, the question is, how do we introduce proof on certain items so that your clients are able to recover for their losses and the like. So I think these cases help for you to start, and the articles as well, help you and should help you to start to think about how we introduce proof, how we introduce evidence with respect to the loss that your clients may have suffered. And we'll read the cases into it. But let me ask you sort of a basic question. Your car is damaged as a result of someone else's negligence. What do you get for it?
How badly have you been injured?
No, you have no personal injuries. We'll just try and take the value of the motor vehicle itself. What do you get? The value of the car. What's that mean? Replacement cost, I hear you say. What's that mean? What's that?
Whole.
Okay, slow down. So damages to make you whole,
Yes.
right? And you said something else there.
If you're driving an old beat up car, you get the value of that old beat up car. You don't get a brand new car.
Okay, but how do we figure out what the value of that old beat up car or your relatively new car is? Go ahead.
Usually, the insurance company will send out an adjuster to look at the damage of the car, determine the mileage, the condition it may have been prior to the accident, and they're going to come up with some sort of figure.
And that person is there to protect your interest?
Well, that figure is going to be reflective of how much the car would have sold for had it not been damaged. And that's usually what they'll give you, either $20,000 or $16,000, whatever the case may be.
So the insurance company is there to reflect your best interest and is going to give you exactly
Not at all.
what you're entitled to get.
That's where you as the attorney come in and challenge the adjuster's
But how?
number.
I'm wondering, I understand the theory, the owner obviously understands the theory. Now I want to know when the rubber hits the road. I want to know how you do that, because that's what we're talking about this week, is proving damages. So tell me, just a simple motor vehicle case. Go ahead.
Well, you can also look at the Blue Book value, which is the state's
So what's the
assessment.
Blue Book? What's that?
It's a book of values of all different types of cars and models and what condition they would be in.
Who puts that up?
I think the state puts it up.
No, I don't know.
I'm not quite sure. I just know about the Blue Book value of it.
Well, okay, and we do have this thing called Blue Book value, right? Or you also you had NADA, NADA, which I think was a black book. That might have been blue too. You could look at Kelly Blue Book value. KBB.com will give you a value, right? Edmunds.com will give you a value. Where do those values come from? Right, that's what I'm wondering. Okay, so I look it up, it says my car was worth $4,000 if it's got X number of miles and this type of equipment, so they give me a check for $4,000, and now I'm a couple $1,000s short finding that same car somewhere else. As a general matter, I think that's probably likely. So I didn't get what I lost if I accept that notion, did I? The book says, right? You've heard this, right? The book says it's worth X. Well, who the hell's the book? Go ahead.
The book is a record of prior sales from the prior month.
Prior sales to who? And probably a month? You really think it's that accurate as a month to month?
It's not a year old. It's you know, they compile records from car dealers as they sell cars. You know, based on some prior period, but it's not that. Obviously, if it was a year old, it'd be no good.
I there be an incentive for car dealers to either inflate the values or deflate the values, depending on whether those car dealers are buying or selling your vehicles? So Geneva says yes, she says yes very quickly and definitively. Have any of you ever lost a vehicle and had to work through your insurance carrier like that?
I did.
When they give you the money at the end of the day, were you able to find a car that would suitably replace your old for the check that they gave you?
Yep.
No.
I got a yes and I got a no, and a definitive no. It looks like over their carrier, right? No, really, right?
Right, no.
So I'm wondering. Well, I mean, let's even go beyond that. Tell me, the Blue Book. Some of you have had evidence yet. Some of you have not. So we can talk a little bit about that. But you know, when we introduce evidence in court, there's generally going to be testimony, or there's going to have to be a foundation laid for the introduction of whatever it is. So when we say, well, here's the Blue Book, even if that's what we want, I'm not sure what the hell that means with respect to procedurally how you go about introducing something like that. And this is still a relatively easy item, right? The value of someone's motor vehicle. So I'm still worried about how you're going to prove what it is you lost. Go ahead, John.
I would think you could do some research and find from other car dealerships what a comparable car is selling for.
Is that what you're entitled to get?
I would think so, yeah.
What do you guys think? He
Could
lost the
to make it
value
whole.
of a 2007 Jeep. Liberty with X number of equipment on it. The Blue Book says it's worth X. He has his doubts. He calls Kelly Jeep in Linfield. He looks in the Globe, and he calls another Jeep deal, Lawless, down in Woburn. And they say, it's going to be X plus $3,000. What's he entitled to get?
It may depend on the terms of his insurance agreement.
Well, you know what? I'm going to take insurance out of the equation here, and that's not a bad point. But, you know, when we try cases, when you guys ultimately are the lawyers and you're introducing proof on items, you know, what the insurance company says it doesn't say is really irrelevant, because you need to be able to establish the value of your client's loss. So what's the value of your client's loss in that 2007 Jeep, even assuming you can get that Blue Book in? By the way, even the Blue Book, if you went to kellybluebook.com, kbb.com, it shows retail value from dealer, private party sale, and trading. So even there are 3 different values for the very same vehicle, rated by the same company with the identical equipment on it and everything else. So even there, we're going to find 3 different values at kbb.com. And similar with other types of issues. Listen, I lost a 2007 Jeep. I'm just trying to figure out what I get. And I'm trying to figure out how you're going to get me what I'm entitled to get, because you're my lawyer. And you better get me as much as you can, because I assume you're going to be paid out of this deal too, either hourly or piecemeal. So, go ahead.
Wouldn't it be like a settlement between because I was reading, in the case that we had assigned for today, in regards to the rings, the rings ranged $700 to $1,000 each, and he ended up settling for $750. So would it be something like that, like you would get the lowest value on the market right now for?
Well, is that the market value? And I
Well,
wouldn't,
no,
I wouldn't
because-
look at it, Alina, as a settlement, because here's the problem with that. Settlement, in essence, means what I agree to give you. But with litigation, we have to assume that there is an agreement, there is no agreement, and that's why we have to resort to litigation. So we have a range. You say, well, since you can replace it, the cheapest you can replace it for is $750, then you get $750. Why are you shaking your head? No, I mean, you've shown me a market value of $750, $850, $950, depending on where you buy it from.
Right.
Well,
But I don't think you should get the lowest.
why not?
Because I think you would need to take into consideration some other factors, like maybe some people take way better care of their cars than the lowest value was worth.
Okay, but I thought we're assuming here everything else is equal. All right, I want a 2007 Jeep Liberty with 50,000 miles on it, color, whatever extras I want, it's all the same. and I call Kelly Jeep and they tell me it's $7,500. I call Lawless Jeep and they tell me it's $8,500. I found a private party down here in Andover who took good care of their car, and that's going to be $6,500. Which one do I? And the book, and data book value says $6,000. So which one do I get? Which one am I entitled to get? Because obviously I would like the, what was the high, $8,500? And if I'm the defendant, I want to give you $6,000, even assuming you can establish liability.
So then you're gonna talk to your client and assess what the condition of their vehicle is, therefore to get the appropriate amount.
We have to assume, in this hypothetical, the condition is the same. We just have a variety of prices.
But aren't we talking, we want replacement value as well, though? We want a comparable vehicle. We want to be able to replace it. So
Right.
So what will it cost us to replace that?
Well, that's what you have to figure out now. I've given you the.
Well, you've told us though, we want the car that is as close to the one that we had.
But all four of these are close to the car you had, right? That's what the hypothetical assumes. So what do you get?
You should get the higher one because of the amount of loss that you had in having to deal with the fact that your car was totaled, you had to maybe take public
Oh, so you have other
transportation.
damages, so you're gonna make it up by going for the higher one without having to establish those damages?
No, you have to establish them.
Oh, okay. Put all your other items of damage to the side. I just want to value the piece of personal property and how you're going to achieve what will make you whole.
Okay, although I would love to get the most money possible, I think that if we're gonna go by terms of, we would be able to get a comparable car for the price, then you would have to say, you know, the other side would argue, well, for the $650, you can get the comparable car, and therefore that's what you're entitled to.
So your loss is to be made whole, and that means that if we shop around and we find a good price that will actually replace the vehicle, you get your $6,500. You don't have to take the $6,000, which is what the book says the car was worth, because if you can't replace it for that, that's not replacement value. But you don't get the $8,500. We don't expect economic waste either, because let's be honest, I'm not buying the $8,500 one. I'm going to buy the $6,500 one, and I'm going to put $2,000 in my pocket to offset some of that inconvenience you even talked about, right? So it's not a windfall either, is it?
But I don't believe that those four cars are the same car with that difference.
Okay, but you have to believe it, because that's the hypothetical.
But I'm the attorney arguing for my client, who's saying, who is pointing out that there is a difference between these four.
Well, but what's the difference if I'm telling you all the same equipment, same condition, same color even? What are you telling me is different? Well, I just feel better getting the more expensive one because that must be worth more? Goes to Karen.
Yes. Well,
I'd rather buy it from Lord and
so you're gonna
Taylor
have to
than
buy-
Macy's. That's what you're telling me?
I'm gonna have to buy into your hypothetical, so I'll accept it. But so then I assume then you would have to do some kind of an average. That's, you know.
Okay, wait a minute, even with an average, Karen, why should I pay more, and why should a defendant pay any more than what it will take to make you whole? Right? Okay, I've got 3, I'll take the average. No, you won't. If I'm defending, right, why should I pay a penny more than what will make you whole? This is what you guys have to do now, right? Because you're the one that's going to establish the proof in some fashion. You get to be made whole. So the question is, how do we bring in those values as well? What's this first one? Let's get some of the. It talks about measures of damage to real property. Because I've got some real property issues I want to ask you about as well. This talked a little bit about the replacement cost less depreciation method. There's a bunch of different ways to try and value real estate as well, or losses generally. Because that's the other thing we didn't even think about. What if I could repair the car? but the cost to repair it is $10,000. I can go buy one for $6,500. We said, it's $6,500, right? I mean, I know you love that car, but you can't expect anyone to pay more to fix it than it's worth. Tell me about the real estate case, because you've got this Blazer Lakeside Industries case, and one of the ways in which they talked about valuing certainly the real estate here is by way of using expert testimony. And that expert then can come in and testify as to the value of the real estate. That's one way, probably not just real estate, right? One way to value property is by someone who's sufficiently qualified, and many of you know the standard for classifying someone as an expert is that they have sufficient background, education, experience, and training in that area, such that their testimony will aid the jury's understanding in the event. So I could hire an expert, but I can also tell you an expert to testify with respect to real estate is not going to be inexpensive. And it's going to be even more expensive if I have to call them in to testify, but that may be one, that certainly is one acceptable way of proving the value of the real estate. But here, there was a fire, and they needed to prove the value of the home, and some of its contents were lost as well. And so they talked about having that expert testify. But tell me about the losses here, because they make a lot of, there's a lot of discussion about replacement cost less depreciation method. They talk about whether it's permanently destroyed or not, because maybe then the value is different as well. Because it says measure of damages to real property permanently irreparable is difference between its market value before and after damage. However, if injury is repairable and expensive repairs is less than the market value, the measure of damages is the cost of repairs. So I guess I'm wondering how you would transfer some of our discussion then to the real estate situation. So if your home is destroyed, so your client's home, partially destroyed as a result of someone else's negligent act, right? Every now and then we see someone drive their car through someone else's house. If it can be repaired, and the cost of repair is less than the total value of the house gets repaired, and that cost of repair is the damage. Is that correct? We're all good on that? So Karen drives her car through your front porch and into your living room. And the cost to replace that damage is $10,000. Your home is worth more than $10,000. Your loss is $10,000. Right? What do you mean no?
Karen is supposed to pay me for the time that I was going to use my house.
Oh, okay, so you have other items of damage, such as the loss of use of that home for substitute housing and the like. Just because the living room was damaged, you can't use the whole house, you have to move out to the hotel?
Yes.
Is that true? I mean, would you all accept that?
And there's probably a claim that she's now terrified to sit in the living room.
That wouldn't be considered as part of the property damage settlement, right? I mean, that's like special damages.
Right.
Those are
Right, that would not be
those are
considered as
not-
part of the property damage, and we can put that aside to make this discussion a little easier right now. And because we can talk about how far we would go with some of that. I'm not so sure as a defendant I am prepared to say that because your living room was destroyed, you're going to get substitute housing for the period, right? The place still has to be bottled up relatively quickly because you need to mitigate your own damages. And the fact that you can't use your living room but have to watch TV in the kitchen or in your bedroom, I don't know whether you get a couple $100 a night for a motel at that point.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I go so far as saying substitute housing, but I mean, it's definitely gonna be an inconvenience, and depending on who you get to do the construction work, I mean, those, you never know when it's gonna be done, and it could be extended for periods of time, and you wanna get it done as fast as you can, but sometimes it doesn't work out.
Well, and here's the other thing about this. So now, because if you thought it was difficult to value a car, now we've got to value the cost of repairs, and that is going to make it, that's going to vary to some extent even more greatly than the value of that motor vehicle that we were worried about. And some of the issues are much more problematic about the quality of craftsmanship, the terms of delivery and how quickly, because that becomes an item. And all of that becomes items of proof that you guys are going to have to introduce at some point. But at any rate, we're pretty comfortable that it's going to be the cost to repair that home. Instead of the living room, it was the kitchen. Nothing really changes, though. What are you saying over there?
Well, now you gotta eat out every night.
Oh, okay. Well, and that, okay, we'll put that aside as well, your consequential damages. But I'm wondering, you get an old kitchen?
State-of-the-art French.
No, but that can't be either, right? I mean, right? Again, if we're only doing plaintiff's work, we could look at it that way. But someone represents the other side, and you had 25-year-old kitchen with serviceable cabinets, but they were old, and so were your countertops and everything else, and the flooring.
Kerosene stove.
No. But right, you don't get marble countertops and very modern cabinets, do you? I mean, you would like to, but that's not what you lost. Go ahead.
No, then you're gonna have to add a depreciation value.
Right, well, depreciation value of the old kitchen you had.
Yeah.
Because you could be way out of pocket here before you're done on a loss like this, right? But as part of your damages, you get replace an old kitchen. That's the measure of your damage. What's the matter? You look like you don't like this.
Well, you can't replace an old kitchen because that 25-year-old kitchen isn't in existence any longer.
Right.
You know, and their value, you know, that Fiona loved that refrigerator. It was her mother's.
Yeah,
So-
but, okay, you can say that, right? But a 25-year-old refrigerator is, she doesn't owe her anything, right? No, really, right? I mean.
This refrigerator was, well, the stove was an antique.
And she liked that only one of the burners continued to work. It brought her closer to mom, right? No, but right, we have to start to reflect this, and no one's writing you out checks simply because you say it's so. So, and this is what they're asking you to start to think about, is that, because it says the language quite clearly, it says clearly replacement costs alone without any deduction for depreciation is not sufficient evidence of market value at the time of loss. That's the other item of damage, right? What is the market value? When we looked at the vehicles, we talked about market value. One is replacement cost. If it can be replaced, it should be replaced, unless the cost to replace exceeds the market value of the item. If we wanted to establish market value, we could do that as well. We can call an appraiser in. We can show what the value of the house is. What the appraiser would do, if you haven't seen them before, is they look at 3 comparables, and then they can value those comparables on a couple of different approaches as well, one of which is market value. The most common is, if you were going to sell it, what would someone pay for it, right? And so they're looking at houses, and remember the whole notion with the problem with houses is there's only one house located in that spot, in that city, when we look at value. So what they have to find is similar houses, similar size, similar types of neighborhoods, but there is obviously some variation because every 3-bedroom cape in Boston is not worth the same amount, even if they're all located on 10,000 square foot lots. And so that's where some of it comes in when we look at market value. The greater variation among the houses means we have to be even more suspect. One approach is market value. Another approach is income approach. So if we were to look at this, the value of these houses from a standpoint of what they generate in income, we can value that as to the value based on an income approach, if they were rented out and the like. And the third method is simply the cost to construct. If we were to buy the lot, buy the home, build it, what would the value be? Those three values can differ dramatically as well. But all of those may or may not be appropriate methods for valuing the property when we look at it. This, what they used here, and this is just I think in part a failure of thinking through it sufficiently. They used replacement cost, less depreciation to try and achieve market value. And as it says here, and I think this is important, and this is an important takeaway for you guys, that the proof of the amount of damages may not be founded on mere conjecture or speculation. But on the flip side of it, mathematical certainty isn't required either. So you guys have to figure out with some level of certainty what it is, but it's not requiring you mathematical certainty, but it can't be conjecture or speculation. What do we do when the value to replace it exceeds the value of the house? Right? We're in a relatively down real estate economy now. And I'm thinking of the area I grew up in, but I'll use Lawrence, which is a closer example. There are some of these big, huge, beautiful Victorian houses, right? And if that home should be completely destroyed because of his negligence, and I should be able to sue him for it, the cost to replace that home, replace it, could be, these days, a big house, nice woodwork, could be $800,000 or $900,000 cost to replace, right? Market value, quarter maybe. And let's be honest, you give me 900 large, I'm probably going to go buy another house somewhere else, but I'm putting 6 or 7 in my pocket, right? And as most of us would.
Okay.
So what's the value of, what are my damages then?
I don't think that would matter, because I think that you would be forced to sell if your house wasn't ruined. So you could be waiting to sell it when the market came back up. So I think you still need to replace it.
But I can replace it with
No,
3 or 4 of them.
I think, yeah, that's
So
true.
what are you saying? Do I get the 9
Yes.
or do I get the 2?
I think you get the 9. So
Does it make a difference whether it's my home or whether I am a landlord? I own a bunch of pieces of property. This was one of my pieces I rented out.
Yeah.
Yeah, what?
I think that if it was their residence, then the best approach would be the cost to construct, because they need a place to live. But if they're a landlord, then you're maybe looking at the income approach and how much that money is generating for you, or how much that place is generating for you.
So do you guys agree? It would depend on what, at least in part, what your use of it was. If it is simply you hold them for commercial purposes and turn some of them over, rent some of the others out, that when that property is destroyed, it isn't market value of the house on, say, Oakland Ave in Lawrence. Well, it is market value. It is not replacement cost, less depreciation.
I would argue for replacement cost.
But how do you then respond to the argument that on replacement costs, the law shouldn't encourage economic waste, and from a standpoint of replacement cost, any good business person is going to take the 9 and buy $300,000 comparable homes, because that's a smart business approach, right? And I still have a lot of land, so I'll just remove all the crap from it and sell a lot separately. I've got a windfall under those circumstances, don't I?
And if you do rebuild a Victorian home, it's never going to get to $900 on the market.
That's right. So I spend the 9, I finish it, it's spectacular. I decide I'm going to sell it a month from now. How much is it worth?
3.
Yeah, so it's still not going to exceed the 3. So, but is that okay? I mean, suppose I was born and raised in that house.
Yeah.
So now it's a difference.
Yeah, I think what she said is.
But if you hold it for commercial purposes, we're going to look at it completely different.
No, because I'm there commercially, because this is the spot that I want to be in. I I've chosen this location. This is where my business is.
But you didn't lose 900, you lost 3. We're gonna just ease of math. Your market value is 3. No? Because, I mean, I hope you can see that this is clearly something that we are going to litigate. If you tell me your loss is 9, because you're using replacement cost less depreciation. But realistically, for 9, you could buy 3. Very simple. Frankly, you can upgrade and buy 3 houses that will more than make, the 3 will make you triple whole. They're not just gonna be whole. Go ahead.
But isn't this why when you look at an insurance an insurance agreement that you have to be very careful, because they will be very specific, whether it is replacement or market cost.
Well, that, from a standpoint of you guys insuring your valuable homes and personal property, you really should look at the policy and at least make sure that you have replacement cost coverage on it, because otherwise you will be at a loss on a lot of these things where they're looking at depreciation. I still think on a large loss, we may, if we're talking about what the value of your loss is, and I think insurance, the problem with insurance is it skews the whole discussion, because even as lawyers you just have to think of, well, the insurance company will tell me, or the insurance company knows what it's worth, but they don't get to be in those big, huge, beautiful buildings because they do what's in the interest of the adverse party. It's because they do what's in the interest of themselves. And so they are always going to lowball you and undercut you on your vehicles, on virtually everything, and you've got to be prepared to fight. Now people are going to pay you to do some of that fighting. And so that's why we've got to start to figure out, and this real estate's relatively easy. By the way, is assessed value, is that one method of helping prove value? Assessed value is meaningless?
It depends on where you are. Some assessments are 100% valuation, some are not.
Some are 100% value, again, established by who? Because let's assume I agree with, and some are, right? Some say, well, this is at 100% assessment. And frankly, we could find things both ways right now. We could go to some communities and find, if I could get that, I'll take a check today for that amount. And other folks saying, you know, very happy with their assessment because they're paying less taxes because that number doesn't really reflect what their value is. So tell me what evidence that is. So now I either don't do or don't want to use it. Can I use it? And I'm wondering, from the standpoint of those of you that had evidence, how would I even use it? Right? Because even your assessment value that the town puts on your home, it's hearsay, right? Hearsay.
Public record.
Huh?
Is it a public record?
Is it a public record?
I think so, yeah.
Tax assessment? So we
Anyone can go look it up in the.
So it is an exception to hearsay, and that can then come in. Well, does it come in then as a reflection of the value? Is that I assume why one of the parties must be offering it for that?
Comes in as relevant evidence. It might.
Relevant evidence on what? Okay, I'll agree it's relevant because it tends to help prove or disprove a fact or consequence.
Right. It's not conclusive evidence.
But it's some evidence.
It's a brick in the wall.
Laura?
You know,
it's some evidence.
Evidence of possible value.
That sounds so loyally. What's that mean? It is some evidence of value. You. Go ahead, Laura. What were you going to say?
Yeah, in this case, it says that a court approves relying on the replacement cost less depreciation as a method to establish the cash value.
Mm-hmm.
For the tax assessment purposes, saying that because there is an economic depression in the area, and that was the best way to establish it.
So it's some value. Yeah. What were you? You had something over there. I saw you looking up. No, you're good.
Oh, I was just looking up the public record.
Does it fit?
Yeah, I think so. It's the activities of the office or agency, or matters observed pursuant to a duty imposed by law, as to which matters there was a duty to report, excluding criminal cases, in civil actions and proceedings against government in criminal cases. So I think it's the activities of an office or agency.
And it is the assessor's office, and that's what they're required by law to do. So that would be some evidence of your value, because that obviously is an inexpensive means of proving it. was in your first case, your Lakeside Industry case, while it was an incredibly sloppy way to go about doing it, was this some sufficient evidence with respect to the value of the home that the plaintiffs were able to establish to some degree what their losses were for the real estate that was destroyed as a result of the fire? What do you think?
Do you mean the expert witness?
I'm just wondering whether you think whether the court determined that the proof was sufficient, that the plaintiffs were able to establish their losses with some level of certainty, such that it could be appropriate to award damages.
Well, I think it was difficult for them in this case because, I mean, the home itself was totally destroyed, and we talked about the value of the home, but all the contents inside were totally destroyed. I think it was probably difficult for them to put a value on all of that stuff.
I don't think the case really was as much concerned with the personal property as the real property. And at the end of the day, what had been proffered to the court was the replacement cost less depreciation method to show what the losses were. I think the court would have been more pleased with the straight market value approach, but the fact is that this was a method that was not so out of bounds that they shouldn't have awarded damages. Because as you see here, what happened is the defendants moved for a directed verdict, and the court granted that directed verdict. And I think what the court is saying is that that really was inappropriate. There was, while the evidence wasn't exactly to the court's satisfaction, as market value would have been a better approach, we had an expert with sufficient background education, experience, and training, and we did have enough information here that we could have gone forward on it. Let me ask you about Campins versus Compels, if we can get that done relatively quickly before we get out of here. He's got personal property that is unique personal property. And from time to time I've had these worries as well about how we value unique personal property. And we started out today by talking about your motor vehicle, which isn't really all that unique. What about your laptop? I see a bunch of laptops on the table. I mean, some of varying age. So your laptop is destroyed as a result of someone's unlawful acts. You get 2, 3, 4-year-old laptop? Right, you don't get the new fancy one, do you? Janine was saying yes, you do.
If you just bought that one, it was brand new, I would say yes.
Okay, so if you just bought it, you should get what you paid for it. But I mean, we're saying just means just though, right? Just means like what?
Yeah, I mean,
a month, a week?
I think it would depend on what brand it was and how old the computer was. I mean, as long as you get something comparable back that you can still use, just like the one that you had, that's replaceable. Although,
Are we not
you have
talking
all
I'm not
that
sure what
work.
that means.
Are we talking about just the computer, or are we putting on?
Well, I
the
want to
extra
go.
stuff?
I think, and that's fair because I want to go to the next. Let's worry about the hardware, and then we can talk about the rest of your losses. But the hardware itself. Suppose it's a 5-year-old laptop, right? Don't people tell me that that's about it for the useful life? Huh?
Worth next to nothing at that point, right?
That's true. We're all sort of in agreement on that. It was yours. You loved it. You used it. You got your 5 years, just like
It's
just like Fiona's
the value
fridge.
is in the information that's.
I'm
stored.
sorry?
The value is what she was indicating.
Well, and I wanna get to-
Information that's stored on it.
I want to get to that in a minute, but,
Potentially, yeah.
but the property itself, not incredibly unique. We should be able to go and figure out what the value is on a 5-year-old used laptop of similar make, and that's it for the hardware. I'll take it where you guys want to go. How are you going to value the contents?
Well, that's no different than like if a dog gets killed. You know, somebody will say, well, you paid $800 for him, but the dog might be worth $1 million to you in reality, right? Because of the sentimental.
Well, but is that all that on your computer? All this, the
I don't know.
contents are sentimental, or?
There could be, who knows?
Well, okay. Well, by the way, let's just take Freddie's point. Your photographs aren't worth any more than they were for some of you, when I ran into your house and burned a picture of your grandmother during first year Civ Pro, right? No, so the fact that your photos are on your computer now, is that they're worthless?
No, they matter.
Huh?
They matter.
They do matter. Do they financially matter? Because you're going to have to figure out
Sentimental value.
Yeah, but I remember, right, Campins versus Compel says that you can't collect for mawkish sentimental value. And I'm with you. I love my photographs too. And they look a heck of a lot nicer on a computer than they ever did printed off. So that would be a real tragedy. But
They don't even have printing costs if they're on the computer, though. So, yeah, developing costs like you used to have, so, yeah.
So
Difficult.
well, let's put the photograph. Let's put that. What about the work content, your law school outlines, your all of those things that hopefully you'll be able to use in a short period of time or a little longer to help you get ready for the bar exam? And well, let me ask you this: that's your only copy. Shame on you.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to say.
Is that right?
Contributory negligence on your part.
Shame on you if you don't have a backup. You should have known better. You've got no losses because you should be looking at the man or woman in the mirror who's responsible for the contents, and you're not backing up like you should. You agree to that?
I do, but I think the only.
You all back up those weekly?
Hell yeah.
No.
Okay, hell yeah. The only hell yeah I'm hearing though.
But I will tell you what I think would be valued on your computer if you're in the process of doing something for work. And this is something that you have paid for and that has substantial value to someone else. If you're writing a novel, and you sold other novels.
Okay, so you got to sell other ones.
Yeah.
No, really, right? Because
Right.
we've done that. The first work
But then
of art.
you could show there's valuable work product on there. If it's only valuable to you personally, I don't think that you can, be compensated for it.
Well, your outlines, they are valuable to you, but there is some
The
commercial.
problem is that any reasonable person knows that your laptop can crash at any given moment, so you have to back it up. So the defense is going to make the argument that you contribute.
Melanie, how often you back that
contributory
up?
negligence.
I actually had a computer crash, so my laptop is backed up at least twice a week.
Wow.
Karen.
Someone did it for me a while ago.
I hear you. I'm in the same boat. Laura and then Ray.
I mean, how can you even prove that you had the stuff in the first place if that's the only copy?
Well, that's an excellent question. Okay, because we talk about proof, and that's what I want you. Okay, so yeah, I had that great novel on there that I was going to write. You wouldn't believe my law school outlines. No, right? So that's what I had. Ray, and then I'll come over.
But I think we had a case back in civil procedure where, correct me if I'm wrong, but this gentleman had a book he was writing, and then, yeah,
Right.
I mean,
Photojournalist.
exactly. It's the same case here. But I mean, as far as backups go, I mean, I don't think that you can hold anyone else but yourself liable for that. I mean, if you lost, 3 years worth of outlines, that's on you.
It really is. So he comes in, steals my laptop, trashes it under his car, and that's all on me because I should have. And by the way, to blame the victim. This is precisely the way cases are defended, right? And the case is much more egregious than this. That's all on me.
No.
And well, that's the way it's going to play out. I said I'd come this way first. Go ahead.
Wait, they did include sentimental value in this case.
For the rings?
Yeah.
Well, they said they were not mawkish sentimental value, they, okay, what language are you going to read me?
It says with the sentiment included.
But the sentiment is because it's in essence a trophy, right? That sentiment would be shared by others.
Right.
Right? Because I think they're saying you can't just collect from mawkish sentimental value, but there are some items, like here a trophy, that because it would be shared by others, it's more than just the sum of its parts. Right? I think, and because I want to leave you with that question, a couple questions in that regard. Alina?
Okay, yes. What I was going to say is, in regards to, it's not all on you if somebody steals your computer or because of their negligent act you lose it. I think if anything, it should offset the value that you will receive for it, but I don't think that you should just get nothing.
So I get something for the contents. If I get something, then you guys got to figure out how to value the contents. What I want to leave you, and I'm going to ask you more on Thursday when we meet again. But this Campins versus Compels is a case I like a lot because I've got, and you saw that, you read the case, you saw it's not really much of a question about liability. We really have to try and prove the value of those damages. But I want to ask you about my baseball story. I went to Fenway Park. I've gone to Fenway Park since I was little, and I'm not little anymore. After going to the park somewhere in my 40s, so I must have been going to the park for over 30 years, I finally caught a baseball, okay? And I had a fight to catch it and keep it, first of all. But I want to know, suppose the baseball was stolen from me, and I've got other baseball pitches that I'll show you on Thursday, other baseballs, a couple. Suppose Freddie comes into my office, because he admires my baseball, and he sees it here, and he steals it. Puts it in his pocket, walks out. And I'm honest to God. Can I ask you, how many of the rest of you have always have desired to catch a baseball at a sporting event? Just me, right? Come on. That's it? Sure. Okay, there's a few. Okay. No, really? No, it's a man thing. Is that what it is? No women? Huh? Oh, you actually have caught it as well.
Yeah.
Oh, very good. Oh, well, okay. And how many of you have caught a baseball at the event? Okay. And you look pretty proud of yourself having caught the baseball.
It's mine too.
Oh. Okay. And so that would make it even more valuable as well, right? So here's my question: when Freddie steals that baseball, I want to know what it's worth, what you're going to get from it, because I think it's got to be more than just the sum of the value of that baseball, right? And so, how do we value that? Because
Lots of use and enjoy.
well, but I mean, it's in a little plastic bubble. I don't use it much, but I look at it from time to time and I smile. So, and I wouldn't sell it because I like, it was a good night, finally said you did something, and it's got to be other items. And I have lots of little items like that. I like my trophies of various sort. They remind me of good times, right? That's what I do. I want to know what they're worth. And I want to know how you value them.
Might depend on who hit it. And if it was
And you know
a
what?
home run.
It really doesn't. It doesn't matter at all, because it matters on who caught it. That's all that's important in this event. No, really. I'm telling you, I don't even remember who the hell hit it. Because it wasn't about that, right? It was about my achievement. It wasn't even a foul ball, right? So it wasn't even a home run.
So it's worth a couple bucks then.
Is that it? No, is that it? Right? This is right. This is.
But if it was a
so
home
if
run
it
hit by,
was
Babe Ruth.
Manny Ramirez's 800th home run, then we're going to establish a different market value.
Right.
Well, definitely.
Okay,
If
and
it's
that's a
not-
good point, but that wasn't this. This wasn't Manny's achievement, it was mine. And I want to know how you value things like that, and I want to talk a little more about it, because I've got other items of personal property that have even maybe perhaps a more obscure market, but they're of value, and they would be of value. Do they have to be of value to people other than yourself? Because it can't be just personal sentiment, right? There has to be sentiment shared by others if we're going to collect on it. And that's what that's how I'm going to leave you with that. And one other question. Is your great-great-grandmother's diamond ring, is that worth just the value of the stone and the setting?
No.
Keep your thoughts to yourself so much. Okay, and I don't disagree with you. Tell me how you're going to put a value on it. Tell me how you're going to put a value on it for your clients at some later point. Okay, we'll talk next time.